Hello and welcome back. This is Peter and Sylvia. We are talking about mental health, as you know, in general and also in business in particular. And something that keeps coming up, and Sylvia, you and I have talked about this before in one way or another, maybe more than once, is about employer responsibility as far as employee health is concerned. Mm-hmm. I say health because these days we are getting smarter and smarter and try to separate out physical health and mental health, because we're still one whole body. We're not coming in two parts, head through one door and body through another door. But we're still using the term mental health for a number of very good reasons. But I think over time we will start to maybe just talk about health. Mm. But in the workplace, everybody knows that the employer has a legal responsibility to make sure that their employees do not get ill one way or another from going to work. But what is the responsibility if the illness, physical, mental, otherwise, is not caused by work? Is the employer actually responsible, or do they need to do anything?
That's a really tricky question, because from my own experiences many years ago, my struggles with poor mental health were nothing to do with work. In actual fact, work was completely opposite. Work was my saviour, my antidote, my place to be, my place where I could do a good job and not have that sense that I was a failure, and doing a good job, being successful. So outside of work, my life was very different. And perhaps it's because the way I was brought up, value systems, belief systems, my belief, it was a very private matter. So when I went to work, I did my job and I kept a very strong personal and professional boundary. People never saw when I went home and closed the door what a mess, for want of a better phrase, I was in. Now, I also appreciate that many people struggle to have that real strong personal and professional boundary, and also appreciate that stuff that goes on outside of work can easily flow through to work, because it affects our mood, our physiology, everything that we do, how we turn up and how we do our job. But what then happens in the workplace? There is a lot recently about employer responsibility, having all these occupational health, HR, EAP plans, counselling, which is fabulous. But I wonder, and I'm curious about this. I hear a lot about people talking about, well, it's my employer's responsibility to do this for me, my employer's responsibility to do this for me, or supply this or provide that. And I wonder and question, where is the employee as a human being responsibility, self-accountability and self-responsibility to recognise they're slipping, to know the signposting, know where to get that support, rather than, and it's maybe quite a contentious word, almost like abdicate the responsibility to their employer. For me, it's a two-way thing.
I would agree with that. And as we have this conversation, I'm sure that somebody out there is now screaming, don't blame the victim.
Yeah.
That's not what this is about. No. This is about, okay, I'm paid my full pay when I'm off sick. So you can have your sick pay, and that's the legal responsibility. It's in your employment contract that you have X number of days paid illness, paid sickness, absence. Rules vary, but there are some statutory rules that everybody must follow. But then you have something long term. It could be depression. It could be a child with a difficult diagnosis that need a lot of caring, or it could be your parents that need care and attention. And that takes your mind and your body away from the workplace, and you need some time off over and above. And is that a legal responsibility on the employer, or is it a moral responsibility? Some employers will say, there's nothing to do with me. I didn't cause this. I am not going to suffer financially, paying you, but getting nothing in return as per the contract. Others will say, okay, I appreciate you. I like you as an employee. I will do whatever I can. And when that happens, I know from people I've spoken to about this that they come back full of energy and they are giving back an awful lot because they got the support and the compassion, and now they want to pay it back. So I actually think, yes, you do take a hit as an employer in the immediate term, but just wait and see what comes back when that person is now ready to go back into to full work mode.
What springs to mind there is something I did a talk many, many years ago, and the title of it, I'm not the type to have mental illness. And the question was, well, who is the type then? So I think and my point, the reason why I raised that is because I think sometimes in workplaces, we may not think we're the type to have mental illness, but life happens, the unforeseen happens. And whether that's in work, whether that's outside of work, I do think an employer has a responsibility to support their staff, their employees as much as they possibly can by providing these, there's so much fantastic provision out there to support their employees' physical and mental health, their well-being in entirety. Because at the end of the day, an employer, they have their people are their greatest asset, in inverted commas. They want them to perform, they want them to be productive, they want them to be well. So recognizing that when sometimes when someone is poorly, there is a responsibility for the employer to do something, but I also think there is a responsibility for the employee, the human being, to do something for themselves as well. If I have an injury, I'll go to the doctor and sort something out. If I have a heart issue or something else, so why not the same for our mental health? We start to struggle, we avail ourselves of all these wonderful tools that employers provide, and we can also maintain our privacy if we know where to get that support.
I think you're right. It's about placing responsibility where it belongs, and we are responsible for our own health. It's not the doctor's responsibility, it's not the employer's responsibility, it is our own. So we do have to speak up at the right time in the right place, and then I think you will get the support and the help that you want. But if you just sit back and feel like the victim, and why is my employer not doing anything for me? They should know better. I think you're in the wrong mindset. We have to look after ourselves, and who says we can't look after our peers in the workplace? Does it always have to sort of roll downhill from the top as handed out on a plate? When was the last time you asked someone out there, ask your boss, how are you doing today? It's as if we think bosses and employers just know everything. They are immune to life in general. But they too have their issues. They too have their divorces, their sick children, the pet dying. Everything else happens to everybody. So we are not made of plastic off the same factory mold. so we it's a difficult one, I think, because employers do, of course, run a business to make money, and you can't just have a factory full or an office full of people who are off sick and think, yeah, that's great, I'll look after them. Employers are not the NHS, they're not the doctors, they're not the psychologists, but they should be the enablers of people feeling good about themselves and then therefore be more productive in the workplace.
I think there's picking up on the point you said there, when I was struggling all those years ago, there was an element of, why aren't people asking me? Why aren't people noticing that I'm not very well? At the same time, in hindsight, why didn't I speak up? Didn't speak up for all sorts of different reasons. But it doesn't take much for someone to say, oh, Peter, you don't seem your normal self. You all right? It doesn't take much to do that. And if we know what our organisation provides in terms of signposting and support and where to get it, then I'm also more confident for when you say, well, actually, Sylvia, I'm X, Y, Z. I go, well, did you know, Peter, that the organisation provides X, Y, and Z? Because then I don't get caught in, what happens if Peter says he's struggling? What do I do? What do I do? So then everyone says nothing. And yet we can all get a sense of when our colleague isn't their normal self. And why is it that we say nothing? It doesn't take much to say something. And also, in my particular case, it was almost as if someone asked me, it would give me permission to actually say, well, actually, whereas I couldn't and wouldn't make the first move for all many reasons. But if someone had have stepped in and asked me, I would have said. So perhaps that's something for the audience to be aware of.
It's an interesting thing, because as you were talking there about how you felt when you were in your bad place mentally, people didn't know me any other way than how I was, because I entered the workplace, the workforce, in a depressed mode, in a depressed mood. I was severely clinically depressed. I was suicidal every day. I still managed to do a master's degree. I still managed to get out and get a job, move country, get into work. They didn't know any other version of me than the slightly moody, half grumpy person who wasn't their ray of sunshine. And no one came up to me and said, well, you're not your normal self, because they saw my normal self as I was at the time. So we're very good at hiding things. And I think this conversation you and I are having is just a sign that we are now having these conversations, where back in the day when I graduated in 1990 for the first time, we did not talk about these things. I was horrified when I went to see my GP and I could see that he wrote a psychiatric consultation. Ooh, that was now going on my record. I wasn't best pleased with that. But I had to talk to somebody at some point, and I'm glad I did, because I'm still here to tell the tale. But let's keep this conversation going, and let's hear what other people have experienced or think about employer responsibility, employee responsibility for health in the workplace. So thank you for watching.
Thank you. Cheerio. Bye-bye.